Chapter 742. The man looked at Wilbur coldly and said, "Seth Wilson is my esteemed guest, so you should apologize to Mr. Wilson immediately, otherwise, you will face the fury of the Zions." Wilbur instantly laughed. He asked, "Are the Zions very powerful?" Seth replied arrogantly, "Dude, the Gardeners will be doomed today. You should understand the power of the Zions." Wilbur chuckled and asked, "Why do I have the feeling that the Gardeners will not be doomed? The four major families gathered here today to destroy the Gardeners. I'm here to watch the fiasco. Dude, do you have the courage to go? Haha." Seth laughed and mocked Wilbur while looking at him. He assumed that Wilbur knew the Gardeners, but the Gardeners were about to be doomed. Wilbur would be doomed too, regardless of who he was. Wilbur smiled and said, "What a coincidence. I also wanted to watch the battle. Shall we go together?" There was a hint of mockery in his eyes. "Do you think you can fucking get in?" Seth asked rudely as he made fun of him. Wilbur replied, "Don't you worry about that. Not only am I allowed to join the battle, but the Gardeners will also win. The four major families are doomed." Seth looked at Wilbur bafflingly like he was looking at a nutcase. Seth and his companions burst out laughing after a long while. What a joke. The four major families are doomed. From what? Yumi Gardner and that reckless Dasha scum, they thought. They were also from Dasha, but Seth and the others did not believe that anyone could take on the four major families. They were the most powerful beings in Karatopia. Is he joking? They thought. Seth said coldly, "Fine. Let's make a bet. What will you do if the Gardeners are doomed?" "Whatever you want. You can do whatever you want to me if the Gardeners are doomed," Wilbur said with a laugh. Seth laughed and responded, "All right. If you lose, you need to run around naked in the city and call me daddy in front of everyone. What do you say?" His companions laughed loudly at the same time. The city had the busiest streets. He would end up on the news if he ran around naked. The whole world would see how embarrassing it would be. Wilbur also laughed and said, "All right. What if you lose?" Seth lifted his head and said, "Don't worry. I won't take advantage of you. If I lose, I won't just run around naked in the city. I'll kneel and beg for your forgiveness. All right?" Wilbur laughed at his confident facial expression and replied, "The bet is on." Seth scoffed coldly and told Seamus, "Seamus, let him off the hook this time. I'll watch him run around naked when he loses." Seamus smiled and nodded confidently. They were bound to win the bet, they had no doubts about it. They thought that Wilbur did not know his place and was just out of his mind to bet on the Gardeners. "We'll take him in then, Mr. Wilson, but I can't imagine the four major families losing," said Seamus while shaking his head. Wilbur scoffed coldly and said, "You'll find out soon." Then, he walked toward the mountaintop. Seth and the others followed closely. "This asshole humiliated me at the airport. I have to teach him a lesson this time. I don't have to kill or resort to violence each time. Isn't destroying his dignity better? He will kneel and beg for my forgiveness," Seth mused.